Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
Let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon.
Pumped up on Mars, juice, and ketamine.
He is the Thomas Edison plus of our age.
Probably his whole life is from a position of insecurity. I feel for the guy.
I would say 98% really appreciate what he does, but those 2% that are nasty, they are out there in full force.
We are meant for great things in the United States of America, and Elon reminds us of that.
I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Welcome to Elon Inc., Bloomberg's weekly podcast about Elon Musk. It's Tuesday, June 10th. I'm your host, David Papadopoulos. So the wild feud, the feud to end all feuds between Elon and the president, appears to be simmering down a bit for the moment. Salacious posts are being deleted, niceties exchanged, but the damage to their alliance is done and will break it all down. Also, a big date is upon us. This Thursday, Tesla will apparently finally start its long-awaited robotaxi service in Austin, Texas. Now, the torching of several self-driving Waymos in LA is perhaps an ominous sign for the launch, as is the bombshell report by our very own Dana Hull about a lethal accident involving a Tesla in self-driving mode. But perhaps for Musk & Co., it is an opportunity to draw attention to something other than his brawl with Trump. Then at the end, we're going to have a little feud watch. So lots and lots to go through. And let's get to it with our regulars, the aforementioned Dana Hull and Max Chafkin. Hello to you both.
Hey, David. Happy to be here.
Good day, David.
How are you guys doing? You're smiling again, Max.
I mean, crazy week last week. I'm still
You're
reeling.
still a buzz. You're still aglow. So we spoke, you did an emergency pod on Thursday with Josh. And then you and I did the Friday one. Stuff keeps happening, although I guess maybe tacking back in the other direction. Bring us now up to speed.
Yeah, I think we started to kind of hint at this in our conversation on Friday. Elon Musk, pretty quickly started to at least turn the dial down. He deleted the most incendiary tweet, the one about Jeffrey Epstein. He, I believe, deleted the tweet calling for Donald Trump to be impeached.
He's deleted at least two. Yeah.
He's also gone back to sort of something resembling his regular scheduled programming. At the end of last week, he just started tweeting about, a big win for Starlink in Dominica, the island. So I guess, which I thought was kind of funny because it's like, okay, here's a country
we're huge in Dominica
where the
right
world
now.
Leader does not hate me. But in any case, he's been talking about his companies again. He has also sort of amplifying Trump administration messaging on the protests. I believe he tweeted a J.D. Vance statement as well as a Donald Trump truth.
Yes.
He refollowed Stephen Miller, for those of you who are following that drama.
Thank God.
So yeah, he's sort of trying to edge his way back into the good graces of Donald Trump without explicitly apologizing. He hasn't done that or really come close to doing that.
Now, Trump is still keeping him at arm's length, though.
Yeah, Trump was asked yesterday about Elon Musk's drug use, and he answered the question in a way that seemed very diplomatic. We should just listen to that, David, I think.
Yeah. Let's do that.
There was this New York Times report that he did not want to talk about, Elon Musk, that alleged that he, towards the end of his time in the White House, was blurring the lines between recreational use of drugs and medicinal. Do you think he ever had drugs here at the White House?
I really don't know. I don't think so. I hope not. Look, I wish him well. You understand. We had a good relationship, and I just wish him well. Very well, actually.
It's not exactly a total denial, but he also said he didn't see anything concerning. To me, that's sort of a response that tells you that this feud is still going on, although it does appear that Donald Trump is trying to turn the volume down as well.
A day or so earlier, the Washington Post had, I think this was over the weekend, reporting that Trump in phone calls with some of his advisors and such, had called Musk a big-time drug addict. So yes, certainly a very different tone here in this press conference.
It's a different thing to say, I never saw somebody take drugs versus I know he's not a drug addict, right? Like, so he could have denied it in a more complete way. Yeah. Although he does back up Elon's denials to some extent.
Okay. Now, Dana, we missed you last week, and we didn't get your hot takes towards the end of the week. So as you are observing it all, what is your take from there?
Yeah, I was off at the end of last week trying to be like a normal person. So I was following this like tit for tat back and forth sort of on my phone, but not in real time. And then it was very hard to play catch up. Anyway, it was just sort of crazy, but I thought that what Trump said in that clip, I wish him well. I wish him very well, actually. It's like, is he wishing him well because he thinks he's a drug addict? Or is he wishing him well because the relationship is over? Or is he wishing him well because he still needs him to finance the midterms? Like, it was just an interesting response.
My reading of that was door number 3. I wish him well. Musk is working very hard to try to simmer things down, and I'm going to take a step in that direction as well. I wish him well so that he keeps sending me money.
Yeah. My hot take was it totally reminded me of the whole pedo guy thing from 2018 when like Elon with zero proof whatsoever basically just like went on this rampage and called this cave rescuer a pedo guy and like then doubled down on it and just he's like when Elon is certain that he's right about something or when he's upset or when he feels like he's being attacked, he just goes thermonuclear. And
specifically you're referencing the Epstein thing?
Yeah, like this is a thing. Like Elon is like obsessed with this idea that people are pedophiles.
It's the pedo guy insult all over. I mean,
2.0.
Because of the allegations around Jeffrey Epstein. It's exactly the same insult, except the difference.
I see.
One of those guys. One of those guys is president, and one was a guy who had been on TV once.
Exactly. But for him to level this at the president and to do the twofer of he's in the Epstein files and that's why they haven't been released and he should be impeached. I was like, wow, okay, someone really needs to like step in and take his phone away. In the old days, that would have been Sam Teller, his chief of staff. I don't know who takes the phone away these days. Is it Katie Miller? Is it someone else? Like, I would love to just know like the apparatus. And then there was a lot of reporting about how this détente was reached because of intermediaries. And I'm like, well, who exactly are the intermediaries at this stage of the game?
It's Bill Ackman, Kanye West, and that Anon on Twitter, Alaska
That's
or whatever.
Right.
He was like, hey, Elon, I think you should cool down. And Elon was like, that sounds like a pretty smart idea. Random guy with a couple hundred Twitter followers. One thing I've been thinking about in the sober light of day, we have, as we've been talking about the Elon-Trump kind of relationship, a lot of Trump reporters, including Josh Green, who was on the podcast last week,
said, I told you so.
Yeah, have said, I told you so. Yeah, and I am happily eating crow, although I do think we're starting to see that my take that this relationship may continue. I don't know.
You want to share the crow with other people.
Yeah, it's not looking as bad as it did last week. I do wonder if Elon is sort of a combination of like one of these Trump advisors who were sort of chewed up and spit out by the White House and a world leader. Elon is part Scaramucci and part Kim Jong-un. And I say that because Elon has
that's quite a merger.
Has leverage, and we saw it last week when he was threatening to cancel the Dragon program. He has the kind of leverage.
The campaign donations, Dragon, all those things are right. But Max, at the same time, you can't tell me that he doesn't have more to lose in all this than Trump.
No, he
totally
does. But I just think there's a way to reach kind of a equilibrium where they are neither friends nor enemies, which is kind of the way it works with all these world leaders, where Trump one day will be hinting at the possibility of nuclear war, the next minute saying, I love this guy, and we've seen it with Kim Jong-un, we've seen it with Xi Jinping, we've seen it with Vladimir Putin, where he will swing rather wildly in the context of a negotiation. And I kind of think that's a little bit of what we saw last week.
I would just like to point out that we had all this BS for so many episodes about the cage match and what the real cage match was. And David, this was the cage match. This is the true cage match. Trump and Elon, like Bannon in one corner, Katie Miller in another. I don't know. Like, it's just
right. Bannon is Trump's cup man. Who's Musk's cup man? Yeah, it's not Katie Miller.
It's Ackman or Kanye.
Ackman. Or is Ackman the ref? No, it's true. It's the cage match to end all cage matches. And now they just, each side has gone to their respective corners, at least for the time being. Okay. Now, Dana, on Thursday, Tesla has a big day of sorts, the launch of the vaunted Robotaxi. Tell us, or remind us, I should say, about the specifics and what's at stake here for Tesla and Musk.
I don't want to go overboard and say it's like a big launch event. Bloomberg has reported, my colleague Ed Ludlow has reported that Tesla was sort of eyeing June 12th as the day that they would begin some kind of robotaxi service in Austin, Texas. We don't know if this is paid customers, if it's employees, if it's just like delivering, vehicles from the factory to new owners. We know that Tesla has been testing FSD unsupervised on some Austin streets downtown, but there's no event. I don't know of any investor or sell-side Wall Street analyst who's gotten an invitation to some big show. So it could be a very soft launch, and people within Austin, Austin city officials have been pretty mum about it. So there's still just a lot that we don't know. I mean, if you live in Austin, Texas, give us a holler because we're trying to figure it out. I mean, I was thinking, should I go to Austin? And then I'm like, well, I don't know what I would actually see, because I just think that they are trying to tamp down expectations a little bit as to what exactly this will be.
And by the way, so for those listeners in Austin, Texas, they should write into us, Max, at what is our address again?
Elon Inc. at Bloomberg.net.
And give us any hot tips on that. But I do wonder, Max, if Dana's last point is exactly it, that this went from a year or so ago to be, man, this is going to be big. It's going to be huge. We're going to have bunting up all over the stadium, and it's going to be a big.
So now it's the softest launch you could possibly imagine, and it's particularly noteworthy because this is a guy who is kind of known for these big events. Elon Musk really likes to do these grand shows.
Hence, why he's going to be so bitter that he misses the military.
I know, screaming his name. And they started to signal this during the earnings call. We talked about this on the episode that we did immediately after the last Tesla earnings. We're talking about 10 to 20 taxis with teleoperation, a very restricted area. It also sounded like on the earnings call that they are kitting these things out with more sensors than at least the standard Model Y has. So a lot of reasons to not look at this as a true commercial launch, and really not anywhere near a true commercial launch. But, maybe, who knows? I'm prepared to be surprised because that's what Elon Musk does. But we have not seen any signs that this is going to be a big event. And in fact, I think it's going to be the kind of thing where investors, maybe not on Thursday, but start to ask, hey, didn't he promise that we would have a commercial launch? You know what I mean?
Didn't he promise it? Didn't we friggin' bid the price of the stock up a whole heck of a lot based on all this? And so, but you know what? One of the interesting things is they always seem to forget that they had bid the price of the stock up on. And then if it doesn't come to pass, then they just go, well, we're just going to bid it up on some other thing, as you say, Max, coming down the road. Now, Dana, tell us a little bit about a story, a fantastic story that you and friend of the pod, Craig Trudell, had last week about something that is related, or at the very least, tangentially related to this whole robotaxi launch. Hit us with the details.
Yeah, so this was just sort of a horrible, tragic tale of how a 71-year-old grandmother in Arizona was killed by a Tesla. And it all came to light in a very weird sequence of events, which was in October, NHTSA announced that they were investigating Tesla FSD because of 4 separate crashes where the vehicle with FSD engaged seemed to have difficulty where there was fog, dust, or glare. And they listed these 4 crashes, and one of them was Fatality, Pedestrian, Arizona. And I was like, wait, what? A Tesla using FSD killed a pedestrian? I didn't hear about that. What was that? And we asked Tesla, we asked NHTSA, we asked for more details. Nobody had anything. And so then I went to my old friend, Public Records, which, I just can't stress enough the importance of digging for public records. And I filed a Public Records Act request with the Arizona Department of Public Safety. And I was like, do you have any details about this crash where apparently a pedestrian was killed? And I asked for the crash report, photographs, and any camera footage taken from vehicles at the scene. And like, lo and behold, several months later in like late March, I got back this trove of data, including the video footage of the crash taken from the Tesla itself. And I have to say, like, I have looked at a lot of crash footage and a lot of crash reports in my time as an automotive reporter. I've never gotten back footage from a Tesla like this. I mean, the state trooper who had the wherewithal to download it right at the scene has my kudos. And so we just got back this like really harrowing footage, and it showed that sun glare was the issue, that the Tesla that was driving could not see in front of it because of the glare on the camera. And this was all the more intriguing to me because on the last earnings call, Elon was specifically asked about sun glare and gave this like very long-winded response about it. So the stars just kind of aligned where we had all these elements.
But wait a minute, but the long-winded response was what? Hey, don't sweat it, we got it?
Yeah, it was basically like, we've solved this problem. We had this breakthrough recently. We can bypass the image processor. We're doing photon counting.
Well, so this was one of the questions I had for you, which is this accident did happen a couple of years ago. So is there any confidence out there, not just among Elon and his inner circle, but among broader Tesla followers, that they indeed have made advancements and developments that would fix such a problem?
Yeah, I mean, to be clear, Tesla is always updating its hardware stack and its software stack. And so what version of hardware and software the Tesla that was involved in this fatal crash had in November 2023 versus now, I don't really know, because I asked Tesla if they could tell me, like, what was the hardware version and what was the software version, and they didn't respond.
Did Tesla respond at all to anything you asked them?
No. And I mean, I sent a long list of questions to several executives, but it's reasonable to presume that, yes, the current use out there is a different version. Maybe they've solved it. Maybe they haven't. It doesn't matter. Like, this woman is dead, and NHTSA is investigating this crash as part of a potential defect investigation. And, we only know about this crash because Tesla reported it to NHTSA.
Dan, of course, NHTSA being
National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
Right. Basically, the men and women who regulate the transportation sector. Now, Max, as Dana's saying here, regardless of what happens with the technology going forward, that's not going to bring this woman back. Of course, humans, as we've discussed and as we've argued about in the past, human drivers kill thousands of people a year on the road. And I should also say, as the story points out, but I guess the question is society ready to accept the deaths caused by the robots the same way it's willing to say, hey, god awful, horrible that this human driver killed someone else, but it's just part of the, it's just the way things happen.
Obviously, society is not ready to accept that. There are two problems here. One is that Tesla has all of these statistics about the number of miles driven by what it calls full self-driving parentheses supervised, FSD supervised. Those statistics are interesting, but they are not the same as what Tesla is purporting to launch in Austin or anywhere else, which is the same system, but without a human in the loop.
So the exact same system.
Yeah, and that's what Elon Musk has been saying.
So just sans the supervised and
it's ready for the lack of supervision.
FSD unsupervised, basically.
So
right,
but in
the nitty gritty of it, all you're doing is stripping out one word at the end.
We heard a couple of, there are a few modifications that they appear to be making in Austin because it's not ready. Right. But my point is, we're taking one thing and attempting to make a judgment about another thing that is different, and that is different in like a hugely important way. The second thing is, like, these self-driving systems are very limited. They are only used on certain roads at certain times of day, and they deliberately exclude difficult situations. Fog, snow,
glare,
ice, maybe. They turn off when they can't handle it. And so we actually don't know, like, human accidents, although they add up to a lot, it is not a lot in terms of miles driven. And we don't know how those limitations, the limitations that are in those self-driving systems today, and that people use them in specific ways, right? They don't necessarily use them if they're in a really chaotic driving situation. The kinds of situations, in other words, that are more likely to lead to accidents. So these statistics are interesting, but they don't necessarily prove anything. And that's why it's kind of so crazy that Elon Musk is attempting to just kind of do this.
Dan, any final points on this before we move on?
Yeah, I just think that there's going to be a lot of questions about the rollout, the parameters of it. You know, what happens if there is an accident in Austin? Is the city of Austin going to do anything, or the county, or the state of Texas, or NHTSA? And then, meanwhile, this defect investigation into how the vehicles perform in things like fog and sun glare is ongoing. And I think it's just telling that, you know, when we talk about Trump and Musk and like the levers that and the compromat that each have on the other, like, what is NHTSA going to do here? Like, are they just going to wrap up this investigation and say Tesla told us everything's fixed and this investigation dies on the vine, or does it continue? So that's another thing to keep watching on.
One other thing about Dana's story, and this is kind of important when you're talking about cities like Austin.
Do read it, by the way. It ran as a big take, a Bloomberg big take last Wednesday.
Oh, so one important thing also about the story is AV systems, autonomous vehicle systems, have trouble with non-vehicles. So with pedestrians, with cyclists, and with children. And like, this is not the first time an autonomous vehicle has killed a pedestrian. That of course happened with an Uber autonomous vehicle like about 8 years ago or so. And of course, cities are driving environments where you have lots and lots of pedestrians, where the interaction between pedestrians and cars is really important. We've seen issues in San Francisco where autonomous vehicles have severely hurt a pedestrian. It was a Cruise vehicle that dragged someone under its wheel. And as a result, Cruise essentially shut down its entire AV operation. We've also seen these kind of interactions with pedestrians that are not necessarily dangerous, but are problematic for the autonomous vehicles, where pedestrians just sort of get in their way, try to mess with them, try to confuse them. And so I would expect that if this rollout happens on any kind of scale, there are going to be things like that. There are going to be issues with protesters or with people just kind of messing with / vandalizing these vehicles. And like, it's just creating like a lot of different vectors for chaos or something worse. And I think that's one of the reasons why this is such a limited launch to start with. This is only 10 to 20 cars.
Listen, I think for sure those things are going to happen, especially as you roll out more of these things. I mean, it's interesting to me. Unlike you, I happen to pretty much firmly believe that human drivers are lousy and that if given the opportunity, the robots will eventually do it better than us. But you're also starting to convince me that, you know what, we the humans may never allow the robots to be tested enough to get to that point.
And that's like one of the reasons when you talk to people in the industry who are skeptical, that is their skepticism. They're not saying the robots could never do this, we could never get there. It's that the things we would have to do are things we are not going to be willing to do. Like, are you going to be willing to accept a technology that kills pedestrians at a higher rate than human drivers?
You mean initially?
Or maybe total. Like, maybe fewer people die. What if fewer people in cars die, but more pedestrians die? Would you be willing to accept that?
No, of course not.
Okay, that's going to be a problem.
Right, well, they call the whole thing off. Call the robotaxi launch off.
Yeah, I guess the question is, like, are you willing? So roughly 40,000 people die in traffic accidents every year in the United States. Alcohol, drug use, and speed and not wearing seatbelts are all huge factors in these crashes. But the premise of autonomous driving is that we can get to crash zero. But on the way to crash zero, are we happy if robots, like, end up killing people? I don't think so. I mean, that's the calculus that everyone's trying to make. And what was so sad about this crash is it's like a double fault accident, right? Like, Tesla's legalese always says that the driver has to maintain control at all times. So clearly the driver was not paying attention and did not realize that the glare was really bad. And perhaps they should have slowed down or moved over before coming upon all these cars. But then also FSD was apparently engaged per NHTSA, and that didn't see all of the warning signs either, including cars that were pulled over with hazard lights on. I mean, there were a lot of stationary objects that one would think an FSD system would have seen.
I mean, this is the kind of scenario where, I mean, and again, we don't know for sure. It's very dangerous. Anytime you get out of your car on the highway, it's very dangerous.
Yes,
but this does sound like a scenario where a human driver might have done a better job. And like where, like, as Dan is saying, there's a lot of context around this that a human driver might pick up. It's also kind of upsetting that the pedestrian who got out of the car was attempting to help, was attempting to kind of like, direct traffic around this incident.
Right.
And in a way that, like, again, maybe a human driver, attentive human driver anyway, is able to avoid and avoid this tragedy.
All right. I'm sure next week we will have a bit of a recap of just exactly what transpires down there in Austin. Hard pivot now, Max. Hard pivot to a mini feud that has been thrown off, that is a shard of sorts of the feud to end all feuds. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Elon versus Grok. Now,
Elon versus Grock.
This isn't the first time Elon and his favorite chatbot have beefed in public, but there was in the kind of like back and forth over Elon Musk and the Trump administration, Grok cited a tweet from Elon Musk that was fake. Grok essentially fell for a meme. I'm going to try to avoid getting too far into the meme because I don't want to defame anyone, but it's a left-wing meme without a lot of basis around Elon Musk and a love triangle within the Trump administration. Grok cited this tweet from Elon, purporting to be from Elon.
Like, this is real.
And acting as if it was real. And Elon wrote, FFS, which means for fuck's sake, this is fake. And
with some sort of emoji.
Yeah, I can't remember the emoji.
Was it the hanging head? Or what's the one where the head, you put the hand to the head, palm in the face.
The palm on the face emoji.
Which to me just screams of Grok. I'm so disappointed in you.
So, Grok is not a person, I just want to say, and we should not be anthropomorphizing Grok or any other AI. It's like a spell checker or something. You cannot fall in love with your spell checker. You cannot be mad at it. You can't be disappointed in it. On the other hand, it is kind of funny that Elon Musk is simultaneously saying that this AI is basically going to lead to a super intelligence, and at the same time, you're getting into these
baby steps, Max. Yeah. Baby steps. By the way, something came to me. If there's truly a detente between Musk and Trump in coming days, there's no better place to end it. Or I should say to ring in that detente than at the military parade. And it happens, I think you have Musk at some point in one of the tanks, and then he just suddenly pops up from the turret, right?
I mean, come on,
Dan, you could see it.
Out of the Cybertruck. I mean, that's what the Cybertruck could be.
Oh, the military Cybertruck.
It's like the Cybertruck that Russian warlord had.
Camo.
Yes, exactly.
Cybertruck. That's good. We should send that over to them.
But look, this is a lesson that you can't believe every screenshot you see on the internet, and you definitely shouldn't believe every screenshot cited by an AI chatbot. And Elon Musk knows that well. So which is why, why he's disappointed.
So disappointed. Very, very disappointed. Max, Dana, thanks as always.
Thanks, David.
Always a pleasure.
This episode was produced by Stacey Wong and edited by Anna Masarakis. Blake Maples handles engineering and Dave Purcell fact checks. Our supervising producer is Magnus Henriksen. The Elon Inc. theme is written and performed by Taka Yasuzawa and Alex Sugiura. Brendan Francis Noonan is our executive producer, and Sage Bauman is the head of Bloomberg Podcasts. A big thanks, as always, to our supporters Joel Weber and Brad Stone. I'm David Papadopoulos. If you have a minute, rate and review our show. It'll help other listeners find us. See you next week.